The seventh episode and second to last in the season of Rings of Power has arrived, bringing the aftermath of the creation of Mount Doom and the awakening of the Balrog. This episode, perhaps more than any other in this show, shows just how little the creators think of its audience's capacity to pay attention. Start off in the Southlands as Galadriel and the rest of her company awake after surviving the creation of Mount Doom. As they help the wounded escape, Isildur is trapped in a burning building and Miriel is blinded. The hobbits finally reach their destination only to see that their tree has died and its fruit has gone bad. They ask the stranger for help, which he does, but in the process nearly harms one of the young girls who, like Nori, felt the need to interrupt. The hobbits then send the stranger on his way. In Moria, the two Durins argue over the mining of Mithril, with the older king forbidding any further excavations, which the younger Durin continues, and he then has his title of prince stripped from him, but not before awakening the Balrog. The hobbits finally come across the cult that has been following the stranger, who then burn their carts, but upon seeing that the stranger has fixed the tree, they decide to set out and find him and warn him of the danger that is coming. The Númenóreans decide to sail back to their home as Galadriel and Halbrand ride to find elvish medicine to heal their wounds. The episode ends in the Southlands as the orcs have taken over and rename it Mordor. This week's episode should at least have been entertaining, having been full of big reveals and tense escape scenes, but instead it was very anticlimactic, with Galadriel's escape from the orcs by just ripping off Fellowship of the Ring, the Balrog having been awoken by a fallen leaf, and in case you missed it, the Southlands have been turned into Mordor, with the show literally spelling this out to the audience. In addition to all these and many other issues, there is one scene in particular that I'm going to focus on today, and that's the infamous "our hearts are bigger than our feet" speech. We start off on a wide shot showing the rubble and the hobbits trying to salvage what they can before moving into tighter shots of individual characters, all seemingly dejected. So far it's fairly standard stuff. But notice the lens choice here. The entire sequence is shot on long lenses, which are made to capture far away subjects. Now, longer lenses can be used to great effect for a variety of things, like for subjects that are far away or to create a sense of distance between characters. Now, because of the farther reach of longer lenses, the camera has to be physically farther away from its subjects, which enhances that feeling of separation subconsciously. Now, this could work well if we had at least one character to feel close to during this sequence, maybe using a wider lens on Nori and take a subjective stance from her character and have a connection to her. But Rings of Power never does this, and as a result, the audience has a very difficult time feeling any sort of a connection to anyone in this scene. Now, for an incredible example of how lens choice and distance is used to great effect in the film, check out my video on the cinematography of The Last of the Mohegans. Scenes between her and Duncan, the camera is often physically placed farther away, opting to shoot mostly with longer lenses, regardless of how physically close the actors are staged. And in the few scenes where shorter lenses are used, the camera is still kept a bit back at a distance. This gives the audience subconscious the feeling of distance and separation between these two characters. Now, we already have this feeling of distance in this scene, but Rings of Power now adds on something that's kind of strange, where at first glance, it seems like Largo Brandyfoot turns straight to the camera and addresses the audience directly in his now infamous line. However, if you follow his eye line, he's actually looking just to the left of the camera. But because of the distance of the camera, it's very difficult to see this. He's not looking directly into the camera, and it's not a POV or point of view shot. So what is this? Well, actually it's called a subjective angle. Now, subjective angles take on the relative point of view of a given character without being in an exact POV shot. So what this does is it gives the audience a sense of connection to the character, making us feel like we are right there in the moment without having an exact POV shot. Now, here's a few examples of subjective angles from The Lord of the Rings. First, we see the character and then the subjective angle. So first, it's with Gandalf and then his subjective angle looking at Shadowfax. Or here with Éowyn, with the subjective angle looking at Aragorn. We feel close to her character in that moment. So these actors can either look directly into the camera or just off to the side, depending on the situation. But the problem with the scene in Rings of Power is that we don't have a character to connect with and then have this angle to base off of. So looking at his eye line, he's looking at one of these two characters, neither of which it seems like his speech has been meant for, and neither of which we're given any definitive angle with which we can then connect to them. The scene is so poorly executed that there's just an innumerable amount of ways where it could be reworked and then have been greatly improved. We could fix his eye line, we could make him a bit more off-center in the shot, we could add wider lenses for the primary character to actually give us someone to care about, and then to make that subjective angle make some sense. We could even do something as simple as adding in the back of a character's shoulder to make it look like an OTS or an over-the-shoulder shot, which would help out greatly. Episode 7 is yet just another mess of an episode, with this one scene in particular I feel exemplifying that mess. Now for the rest of the month of October, in addition to my regular reviews, I'm going to be producing a 6-part series on the classic monsters of Universal Pictures, detailing the history of the films, their impact on filmmaking, and of course their gorgeous cinematography, which I'll be breaking down in specific shots and showing you exactly the techniques that they use to create those iconic characters. You're not going to want to miss this series. So if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to my channel and press the bell button so you get notified exactly when I publish new videos. If you enjoyed this one, give it a like, share it, and let me know in the comments what did you think of episode 7 on the Rings of Power.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.